I had not fully understood the format of the contribution, so I had just given the title that was announced, but it's really the whole thing together, and it's going to be more about remembering Rohini than anything else. So although I was introduced as from IIT Gandhinagar, which I am, I spent all my career at IIT Bombay, for those who may not be aware. And so I will be speaking from that point of view. Rohini was, as far as we at IIT Bombay were concerned, the particle physics group, and even other groups, she was really a big champion of IIT Bombay all her career. She had obtained her MSc. She was the silver medalist of her batch in 1974, and she had never forgotten that connection. And she always visited the department. She visited Professor S.H. Patil, who was her advisor for the project, master's project. And so, just to go over a few things, she did actually apply to IIT Bombay around the time that Anuradha was saying, when she was looking to move from Mumbai University. And in fact, she had been offered a faculty position, but I think the CTS, as it was then called, offer came around the same time, and then she opted to go to Bangalore. Later, she was given the Distinguished Alumnus Award at IIT Bombay in year 2004, and it was around the same time that I think she got involved with IUPAP and with the women's cause. And I remember her saying for almost a decade later that this award was one of the earliest ones to come, and then many other awards followed. And so she remembers this as the opening of the floodgates of the awards that I think Sudhir was counting. And she later was member of the Board of Governors for probably 2 terms, I think, so about 6 years. Guidance to the whole institute, IIT Bombay. And then she also came as member of assessment committee, once for the department and once for the whole institute. And so throughout all these times, we were always in touch, and even otherwise she would call up for many reasons, like somebody was recalling him. Hello, can you do this? So this is her picture. So, and I think one of the last major thing that I didn't list on the previous page was that she was awarded Doctor of Science and Honoris Causa at IIT Bombay in 2023. And this is she shared some photographs from that time. So I'm imagining that this is some cake that, this is her guest house picture, probably taken by some family member. And she was also proud to share this picture, this press release, which appeared in a Kannada paper at around that time. This is the picture of her receiving the award, I think, though it's not, I'm not completely sure of the date of this award, but it does look like it is the honoris causa degree being given by, I think that is Dr. Anil Kakodkar. And this is the picture from around the same time. This is my colleague Rama Devi, and she would take everyone under her wing and help them and keep making suggestions about things to do. Going back, way back around year 2000, she suggested that we should hold a meeting to commemorate Professor S.H. Patil's, like a festschrift for Professor Patil's completion of 60 years. That's him in the back for people who may not know. And we gathered together everyone whoever we could get, who were associated with Professor Patil and near and about Bombay more or less. And there is Professor Joglekar here, who was at IIT Kanpur, and Bhalerao, Rajiv Gawai, and a few other alumni you might remember. Some people may know other people from Bangalore. That is me in the back, Uma Shankar, and that is Rama Devi. So we had this meeting, and of course S.H. Patil was very upset that any meeting was at all being held for this, and so he tried to remain in the shadows. But Rohini was the leading light of the whole driving spirit behind it, although we organized it at IIT Bombay. And later on, she also worked to, she did a lot of spade work to nominate Professor Patil for the INSA Best Teacher Award, which he did receive. And at that time, we learned through Rohini the range of people that SHP had been associated with, including Anish Manohar and our people in Fermi Lab, and the names immediately skipped me. Okay, so now just talking about her influence in my little career. Once she realized that I was there but not being seen in many high energy meetings, so she nominated me for the coordinator of one of the working groups in web, and this is how this particular paper got written. Debjyoti is also here. This was the first time ever that I participated in any web, and the paper resulted from that. And the next time, as a neutrino and astroparticle physics coordinator, we organized that brainstorming meeting during the web of year 2000, where we came up with this proposal to set up the India-based neutrino observatory. And of course, the main driving force behind this observatory was, of course, Professor Rajshekharan. It was really his inducement that we held all the brainstorming sessions and came up with this proposal. But I see my participation in web essentially as happening through Rohini. I'm now switching to a much later time, so I don't have any published papers, physics papers with Rohini, but she was, after Weinberg passed away, she was very excited to really tell the story of Weinberg's life and contributions. And so this was one of the first articles that we wrote in the physics news. I'm actually also trying to show the titles she came up with always. Although we wrote the text together, more or less interspersed through completely, so cannot really be distinguished. But she was really always driving the conversation, saying what should be emphasized, what can be done, and choosing the titles. And then we wrote another article because the Current Science, the magazine that the academy here in Bangalore brings out. And this is a little bit of a joke, because this title was chosen by her, as having made a model, somebody who's the architect of a model. And unfortunately, I've shown it here for historical reasons, because the magazine itself, because of its standards, does not put any title on what it calls personal news. Somebody is passing away. So this title remained only in the manuscript, and that is how it was. But she spent a lot of time trying to put together everything that should be told. And we wrote one more article, which appeared when Sunil wrote a nice article in Resonance explaining about gravitons, gauge invariance, and massless particles. And so again, Rohini was all charged up and said resonance is a thing that college teachers read, students read, and we must bring out some things that they can fully understand and appreciate. So we ended up writing 3 articles over about 3 years, each one taking 3 to 4 months. Yes. So, and then since the title referred to the so-called to Susie, let me just say that in my mind, she was the one who kind of again pushed me into thinking about supersymmetry, although I was doing it myself. But she always kept coming back saying, do something with dark matter, do something with dark matter. Sorry, I never ended up doing anything in that, although we looked at it for some time. So in 2013, ICTP Susie, she literally called me and said, you have to go to this Susie conference. It must be some context that I've now forgotten, but again trying to induct me into some joint project or something like that. And so I said no, I was trying to give some excuses, and then she said, no, you are going, and then the invitations came, the support came, and so on. And later on in 2017, the conference that Mano was coordinating at TIFR, I think it was she who suggested that I should cover baryogenesis, leptogenesis in the context of supersymmetry. We even had a joint DST project, although no joint paper resulted because we worked parallelly on things at two different institutes and the two strands never came together. Yes, so then I will tell the technical part of my talk in last 5 minutes or so. Only just picking out the slides from the 2017 summary that review that I gave in the Supersymmetry conference. What would be how Susie might stay just an order of magnitude or two above and not be visible, along with a left-right symmetric model. So there would be a supersymmetric left-right model. This model had a lot of interest for quite some time, especially because with the hope that TeV scale Susie might be found. Maybe it is there, but it is at a higher scale. But I will try to present in what way it is interesting. So I don't know whether I should spend time introducing this model a little bit, but well, so there is a SU2 right in addition to SU2 left. And the SU2 right is broken earlier at a higher scale, and the breaking is accomplished by having a bidoublet Higgs, which transforms on the left by SU2 left and from the right by SU2 right dagger. So this bidoublet then breaks the left versus right symmetry, but the entire model is conceived to be left-right symmetric. So there is a left-handed triplet and there is a right-handed triplet, and their conjugates as required in supersymmetry. The main thing that these authors found was that it was necessary to, if you introduced additional fields omega, then it was actually possible to have a supersymmetric left-right model that could be spontaneously broken, because Mahapatra and others found that it was impossible to not break electromagnetism due to the way supersymmetry is constructed, supersymmetric left-right is constructed. So we were exploring this model, and in the meantime was the discussion of how baryogenesis or leptogenesis may be accomplished. There has been, and even now I think there is a sort of feeling of hopelessness that the thermal leptogenesis doesn't quite work. The various constraints from light neutrino masses and the highest temperatures that can be achieved, those things limit the possibilities. And we were proposing that you could actually have a much lower scale leptogenesis. And that could happen because of left-right model, in which domain walls can very naturally occur. So the domain walls can, because the right-like domains have to be washed out, would have a directionality to them. In addition, there would be CP violating sources inside the domain wall because there are complex scalar fields getting vacuum expectation values. And we had shown that this whole thing was compatible with washout constraints as well. And it could be pitched that a friendly scale of few orders of magnitude higher than TeV, and there would be gravitational wave signatures of this. This work we finally did after several years recently, and the only requirement was that you could have, in fact the model does have seesaw built in, but if you put high scale then it goes very high, so instead you should have a low scale seesaw, putting the realistic neutrino masses in it, say electron mass or muon mass level, and then everything would be, it would work. Instead of going to the Majoranian neutrino being at gut scale, you can bring it much lower down to a PeV scale if you just change what the Dirac mass parameter for the neutrino matrix is. Okay, so primarily it was a case of looking under the lamp but not finding the key, whereas the key was just somewhere behind. So I will in the end just show the calculation that we did after this. So after this talk that I gave, I really got charged up to say there is really CP violation which is transient. It should be seen in some low energy observable, and this is a constraint that comes from asking whether electron EDM can reflect the CP violation that occurs in the domain walls that give rise to baryogenesis, to leptogenesis. And so this is a constraint on the heavy neutrino mass, the light neutrino masses, and thus constraining the left-right symmetric model that I earlier displayed. So this is what the content of that was. And well, okay, so this is, I'll close with this last picture in which Rohini is not there, but the whole gathering here occurred due to Rohini's pushing us all. This is Fernando, my friend from UT Austin, who was then director of ICTP, and Atish, who is now the director of ICTP, and Narayan. Apparently Rohini was in ICTP and Fernando was saying that he wants to tie up with India in some way. And she said then the right place to go to is IIT Bombay. And she immediately also called up Atish and said, you must go with them, go to IIT Bombay. She got in touch with Devang Khakhar, our director at that time, because she was in the board of governors, and told him that this delegation is coming and get something going. So this photograph exists because of all her efforts, and I have put ... here because this is really something still open. The ICTP India alliance it got stalled for a couple of years because of COVID in between, but we are resuming it now, and I'm hopeful that what Rohini started will get realized in some way soon. Okay, so that's all.